There have been complaints about Georgia's schedule before, saying, oh, another cupcake schedule for Georgia out of the SEC East. I don't know if you can say that necessarily this year because they start with Clemson. And then early on in the season, September 28th, they go to Alabama, who I tend to think will present a challenge even for a Georgia team that is very good on paper. So, Jenks, let's talk about this game. It's a
Okay.
relatively big spread, and I think a lot of it goes into how dominant you think Georgia can be because they need to win pretty comfortably to cover this number. So, do you have an initial lean here or anything you think bettors should know before betting on Clemson and Georgia?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like I don't really like this game. I think that this is going to be, well, it probably is the marquee game of the weekend. And so if you look at the amount of handle at BetMGM, you're seeing a ton of money on Georgia here. And I understand why. And they may well blow out Clemson, but it makes me nervous because A, we're seeing money move in the direction of the Tigers, as in, or line movement in the direction of the Tigers. So there actually is some money coming in on Clemson, even though this is one of those I think is going to be a square versus sharp play where I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
sharps might just be on Clemson and thinking this is too many points for an opening game of the season. But of course, a ton of the public is going to say Georgia's going to blow these guys out. And they might. And honestly, that's, as kind of a square myself, that's kind of what I think will happen here. But I will also say Georgia is really, really banged up right now. And as we've seen in the beginning of the season, teams just haven't come together yet. There's always all sorts of question marks, and it takes time for even the best of teams to sort of kind of hit their stride midseason. So it's a stay away for me. I can see Georgia pulling away, but I can also see kind of this battle in the trenches where Clemson keeps it within the number and Klubnik has a good game. I'm kind of all over the place with this one. I really don't like it as a sports bettor.
Yeah, I think for me, I would lean towards the points and Clemson here. I think a lot of this is having faith in Dabo Swinney and his long term strategy of avoiding the transfer portal. You know, from the get go, maybe it seems like a dumb move, and I probably would agree with you there. But still, he is developing some continuity, for his team here. So you see more veteran guys for Clemson, and Georgia lost a lot in the draft. They didn't lose Carson Beck, who is the Heisman favorite. But I do think this Clemson defense can present some challenges, at least on the defensive line. I think for me, we see a lower scoring game that's kind of built into the number here at 48 and a half. I go back and forth because obviously Georgia looks amazing on paper. But again, this is a big spread and we've seen this number come down. I think I'd be on Clemson. It's the first game of the year. We've seen chaos to start the season in a lot of these big games with big spreads. So I think I will take the points if I am playing a side here. All right, so let's move on to some other games. So pick your poison here, Jenks. We can either go to Penn State, West Virginia, or your Longhorns hosting Colorado State. That's a huge spread in that one. Texas laying 32 and a half, or you can go Penn State laying 8.5. Do you want to pick a side here, or do you want to pick a total? Which game would you like to go to?
I really like Colorado State getting the points at Texas. Texas is
Mm-hmm.
going to win. There's no question about it. Right now, we've seen the money come in on Colorado State. We've seen this number drop down from, I believe at one time, it was as high as Texas minus 34. But this is a big look-ahead spot for the Longhorns. Remember, who do they get after Colorado State? They go to the Big House to take on Michigan. So, two things. Sark has already said he wants to play a lot of his two deep against Colorado State. I mean, when you're favored by 30, why would you want to play your starters all four quarters? You want to get these guys who are second and third teamers as much as experience as you can get them. And then secondly, you don't want to show anything. If you can keep it basic, if you can keep it vanilla against Colorado State, and the Longhorns should be able to do that, why would you show anything, put anything on tape when you have to go and face the Wolverines in Ann Arbor the next week? So I absolutely see Texas being more conservative here. They can out-talent Colorado State by keeping it basic, and this could be one of those backdoor covers in the fourth quarter. So I'm going to take Colorado State in the points. They'll be motivated. They're well-coached. Jay Norvell is the head coach out there. He used to be an assistant at Texas, so he knows the Longhorn program really well. It was back in the day, but I like the Rams here.
Yeah, I don't think I can justify laying these big of a point spread in the first week of the season. Like you said, I feel like this is a similar situation to what NC State had last night going in. It was a team they weren't supposed to be competitive with, and they have a big game the next week ahead where they're facing Tennessee. You got Texas facing Michigan. So it just felt like maybe they didn't take them seriously, but that was very much a game until the fourth quarter. And plus, why would Texas want to put any of their offensive schemes on game film for a team that is known for scouting their opponents? I know Connor Stallions is not in the mix for Michigan anymore, but maybe if any of his minions are watching this game, you don't want to put that type of offensive mix for the other team to prepare for you. All right, so I think the most interesting game of the weekend for me is going to be Miami and Florida. The Canes laying 2.5 here, but Florida has a very good home field advantage. And let me tell you something, this might be one of the few winnable games on the schedule for the Florida Gators. If you look at their schedule, my goodness, it is a murderer's row in the SEC. So they need wins, and I know that's not necessarily a handicap because just because you need a win doesn't mean you're going to. But still, this is a rivalry game. Usually in rivalry games, I feel like the home dogs usually bark. I would lean towards the points there in Florida. But Jenks, I know you have a play in this Notre Dame and Texas A&M game, and if I'm mistaken, I think you like a side and a total here.
Yeah, I would say that the Aggies are probably the right side. And you see this often where why is the higher ranked team in number 7 Notre Dame getting points on the road against number 20 Texas A&M? But we see this all the time where it's generally best to side with the lower ranked team here. I think A&M is the right side, but I would much rather bet on the under. I saw some people on the over today. I still like the under. I think when you look at the defensive lines on both of these squads, then you're going to see a real battle, kind of an ugly game, kind of what we saw last night between Minnesota and North Carolina, where it's going to be the first team to 20. Both of these DLs are incredible, and A&M's is fantastic. What was it, 2 years ago when they recruited like 18 defensive linemen because they were paying everybody? It's going to be, I think it's going to be an ugly battle. And it's, like I said, it's going to be the first team to be able to get points on the board and maybe get some momentum going. But I see this coming down to a play or two. And it's fascinating, too, that Riley Leonard played for Mike Elko last year at Duke. Now Elko is at Texas A&M, and Leonard is at Notre Dame. That's another storyline as well, but I'm on the under. If you're Steve Sarkisian, why would you show anything when you've got to go to Michigan the next week? Texas will run basic formations. They will keep it vanilla. Sark has already said, I just want to play my 2 deep, maybe the 3 deep in the fourth quarter. I think this number is way too big. We've seen money come in on Colorado State. A win for Texas, but they don't cover. I'm taking the Rams plus 32 and a hook.
Ooh, rooting for the other team. The first game of the season, but I can't argue against it because remember when you were like, Chelsea, you need to lay the big number with NC State. Look how that turned out. NC State almost lost that game. So hopefully it's not the same fate for your Longhorns, but I would be with you on the big spread.